Guys, this is it, UFC 291. It needs to be known as like the heartbreak card, doesn't it? Like, this is such a hard card to watch as a UFC fan. Little weird to say. It's an easy card to watch as a UFC fan. Next week is going to be a hard week to live in as a UFC fan. Like, Tony Ferguson's career is already over, and now we're just going to see that dead horse get beaten into a bloody puddle of mush and bones that was Tony Ferguson. Like, he's looking horrible lately, and he's in against a decent Bobby Green. Anyway, we've made that video, guys. We've talked about that, but geez. Then, right, you've got Pereira versus Blachowicz. And guys, I got a feeling about Pereira and Blachowicz. He's old as well. Like, he you know what's funny? Like, at the end of last year, if it wasn't for one judge's decision, he could be the world champ, you know? He could be the world champ. And then come next weekend, he could just be done. Like, is Blachowicz going to want to be just a gatekeeper after this? Because there is clearly some new blood going in at light heavyweight. Again, different video for a different time. This one is the big one. I feel like we are very much getting to the end of an era this weekend. Do you remember when the UFC used to have titles? This should be like that. It should be UFC 291 baton change or era over, like something like that. Lee, what do you reckon would be a good name for UFC 291 if we still had to title it? Put it down there in the comments. Let's get into this heartbreaking matchup. Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje. It is an odd one, guys. Do you know Dusty is going in as the favorite, which I find very, very interesting. Because let's look back at their last fights and just do the dreaded MMA maths here. Gaethje has been getting better and better and better. And in particular, I'd like to look at Gaethje versus Chandler and Dustin versus Chandler, because that's like a very good watermark for where we are at the moment. And I feel like Gaethje was in much better control against Chandler. Like, it was a war, but it was a war because Chandler kept bringing Gaethje forward. Like, Gaethje was pretty much okay after that fight, like almost unscathed. And what made that fight so exciting and so fun was the fact that Chandler just doesn't give up. Now, look at Dustin versus Chandler. I know Dustin won that fight, but there's a very real world where Dustin really easily loses that fight. Like, he was in trouble a lot during that fight. In the first round, he was nearly finished against the cage. I think it was the second round from memory that he was getting that rear naked choke. He was fighting that off. Like, if Chandler wasn't brain dead inside the cage and just convinced that he was a WWE fighter, not a UFC fighter, Chandler could have won that fight. So when you do the MMA maths and it comes down to where's the recent watermark, who's the better fighter against the other guy, to me, it's Gaethje. And then if you go all the way back and look at Gaethje versus Poirier won, but it was a competitive fight. Gaethje was in that fight the entire time. Gaethje could have won that fight. So you have to ask yourself, who over the last couple of years has gotten better, faster, or just who has gotten better? And to me, that is easily Gaethje. So I think if you're a betting guy, then the money is there for Gaethje, because I do believe Gaethje is going to outpoint Dustin Poirier. I don't think Poirier is going to be finished. I think there are two good bets to put on this fight if you are so inclined. Number one is that the fight will go the distance. Poirier has got the sort of chin and the grit that will stay in the fight, and unless Gaethje subs him, I don't think that fight's going to finish. I think Poirier's going to survive. But I do think Gaethje is going to win on the damage-based scoring. I think Poirier is going to be throwing a lot of punches. They're going to be hitting on Gaethje's guard. Gaethje is going to be picking his shots really well to the body, to the face, to the legs, and he's going to be landing more damage. There was definitely going to be shots hitting Poirier's guard. Poirier's guard and Poirier's boxing is amazing. But I think when it comes down to the heated moments, the make or break, and as the fight goes on, it's going to be Gaethje that's going to be landing the harder shots more consistently, and it's going to be Poirier who's going to be feeling them. And then, of course, guys, there is the altitude that is going to be in this fight. Like, the altitude is going to be like a fourth character. You know, there's going to be Gaethje, Poirier, the ref, and then the altitude is going to be there as well. And I think that is going to be a huge, huge advantage for Gaethje, who pretty much trains at Team Elevation. Like, he is not going to be getting gassed here. And yeah, okay, we traveled out 2 weeks. Like, you've got 2 weeks of cardio where you traveled out there and you're sort of adjusting to the elevation. Or you've got someone who literally trains in that environment all the time. Like when they have done their entire career training for 5-rounders, they've done it at altitude. Like, that's such a huge advantage, especially when it comes down to 2 fighters like this, with this style. Whoever can dig deeper and have the cardio to push through in the last few minutes of each round to steal the round, that's the win right there. That, to me, that is the win. Then we have to get to the aftermath of the fight and why this feels like it's an era-changing fight. Like, these 2 men have been at the top, pretty much swapping in and out, fighting for a title against whoever the champion is at the time. These 2 are on the list to fight the champ. These 2 are there taking on new contenders, pushing away old contenders. These 2 have been the lightweight division in America for years, and they've both talked about how they're sick of the game, they're over it, but they're so close that they can taste it. Dustin has gone on records many times saying that he hates fighting, and he's doing it because why not do it? He's still so competitive. He could be champion tomorrow. He can still do it. Gaethje is the same way. Gaethje's just gotten smarter and smarter, and he said that he's only going to be fighting, but like, he's locked on to just fighting for the title. And this is the moment, guys. To me, this feels bigger than a title fight. That might be a ridiculous thing to say, but to me, it feels bigger. You know, titles are won, titles are lost, and careers go on. You know, Usman just lost the title, his career goes on. Izzy lost the title, his career goes on, he wins it back. Figueiredo loses the title, he wants to move up. Like, there are title wins, there are title runs, but it's not the end of the era when that happens. This fight sort of shows the end of the era, and it's an end of the era in the division that has been the premier division, the division that us as fans have loved to watch so much. Like, Justin Gaethje is your favorite fighter's favorite fighter. Dustin Poirier is like the king of wars and comebacks, and like, love or hate his personality, you know, to me in his last 3 or 4 fights, he's turned into a bit of a prick, to be honest. Like, he has a real chip on his shoulder, but coming up, there was so much love for Dusty that I still just love watching him fight. I love watching him win. I still love watching his interviews. And come this weekend, for one of these 2 lads that we have watched for years and supported, it's going to be over. It's going to be over. That's the end of that. And that's going to be really sad to see. And I think it's going to be for Dustin Poirier. I think this is the end of the road for the Diamond. Guys, let me know down in the comments, who do you think is going to win this fight? The odds makers think that it's going to be Dusty. I think that it's going to be Gaethje. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. If you've been enjoying the content, maybe consider subscribing, and I'll see you all in the next video.